So one of the things that I pull out of the article that I located in that fateful Google search that brought us all together was that, obviously we like mint because there's this property, right? When I go to a really nice cocktail bar here in Washington, D.C., and I order a cocktail that involves mint, specifically in the garnish, one of the things that the bartender will do will be it depends on the level of bar you're at. If you're at a really high end cocktail bar, they will activate the mint by literally smacking it. It more of a mid-level place, that's exactly what they call it. They call it smacking it. And then if you're in maybe a divier bar, they might call it spanking the mint, which is sufficiently naughty for their purposes. But either way, what's achieved there is the essential oils and some of these, I guess, volatile compounds are activated, and that contributes to our experience of the overall aroma and flavor of this cocktail. And in the article that I came across, it seems like there might be, with certain compounds that we can perceive, perhaps terpenes is one that I'll throw out into the clouds for you to grasp onto there. It seems like there might be some evolutionary purposes or functions. Maybe we don't want to ascribe purpose, but evolutionary functions to some of these compounds. So I'm wondering, Bjorn, this was something that you kind of clarified when we were emailing back and forth. So I'm wondering if you might latch onto that and maybe talk a little bit about terpenes and how evolution in this plant group is something that's interesting for the work that you do.
Yes. So for one, terpenes are the most ancient group of what we call specialized metabolites on the planet. They are chemically super diverse, and for the plants that make them, they are really critical for adaptation and interaction with the environment. Now, that doesn't really, that's not really something that is of importance for humans, but humans recognize them exactly for what you picked them as flavors and fragrances. But their roles go much, much further than that. And you earlier hinted on some medicinal properties. So humans recognize those plants for tens of thousands of years for exactly these properties. Now, when we look at where plants grow, they inhabit such diverse ecological niches, which means that, yes, when they adapt, they change their chemical profile. And this is exactly what we observe in the mint family, which is one of those plant families that is really super rich in terpenoids.
One of the most interesting conversations that I had with someone about the topic of yeast yielded this potential way of looking at the relationship between humans and yeast, in that, this distiller I was speaking with almost flipped the relationship on its head. We're these big humans and we think we have control over the world. He said, well, really, yeast have sort of domesticated us for their purposes, and they make all these wonderful flavors so that we will, continue to help them propagate. And it seems like, the diversity and almost like the adaptability within the mint family might lend itself to kind of a similar finding, in that it just strikes me that, thinking about my friend Colleen, who's, this apothecary and goes out foraging in the Blue Ridge Mountains just a couple hours west of me right now, when she looks at plants, the aroma and these terpenes, these essential oils that can be activated when we interact with the plant, it's a signal. And it seems like plants can use these things to signal. Like, what are some of the other functions that these terpenoids accomplish, either for the plants themselves or perhaps for the ecological niches that they inhabit?
Oh, absolutely. And here the image is much more complex. Interaction with the environment means not only responses to heat or wounding, and you called it earlier smacking. I'll come back to that in a second. But these are, as you say, communication signals that plants can use to attract pollinators. Plants can use this to attract insects that may help them fend off some other insects that chew on them. So those interactions can be far more complex. They are also exuded into the soil as a signaling molecule. They can be used to signal to other plants, hey, there's something going on here. I'm being chewed on. So this is far more complex. Now, you were talking about that smacking, and critically, when you take a look at members of the mint family under the microscope, or even with a bare eye, you can see that they are covered often in some hairy fuzz. And this hairy fuzz, these are called trichomes. These are cellular factories or glands on the leaf surface, and they are dedicated for production and for sequestration of these terpenoids. So when you smack the leaves, you break off those trichomes, and this is how you release these flavors and fragrances. So it totally makes sense that you treat these leaves before you put them into your drink.